See is film taken more than 75 years ago of some of baseball's immortals that has never before been seen in public. It was filmed during a trip to Japan by an all-star team made up of American and National League stars, including Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Jimmy Foxx, and Lefty Gomez. These are Lefty's personal films. He took some of them. His wife, Broadway musical comedy star June O'Day, took some of them, and some were filmed by baseball's immortals themselves. These are films not only of baseball, but of a country that has changed and was on the verge of change and never seen before. The American team was going to play a team of initially Japanese all-stars from their universities. In the first game or two, they played the university stars, and the scores were very, very one-sided. And ultimately, they began to play the best professional baseball players, the all-stars of the Japan non-university leagues. They weren't professional leagues yet. In fact, this tour inspired professional baseball in Japan because after it was done, they kept the all-star team together as the Yomiuri Giants, a team that I believe survives to this very day. This was not the first tour of Japan by American teams. There had been one in 1909 by the University of Chicago and an all-star team in 1931. But this team was by far the most famed, and because it included Babe Ruth, who was a world star to a degree that we perhaps cannot appreciate today, with the possible exception of Muhammad Ali. Babe Ruth was mobbed. Millions of people turned out into the streets. Wide boulevards were turned into narrow alleys because the car that Babe Ruth drove in was going down the street. It's important to remember that not only had most of these people not traveled overseas, certainly not to Asia, but travel logs, travel literature wasn't the way it is today. When people travel today, they go on a website, they can see the places they're going to go, they can even experience something of the culture. When these players went to Japan, many of them had seen nothing but an occasional still photograph. This was almost like going to another planet. These images of this trip to Japan show a man on the verge of broadening himself to a remarkable degree. It is important to remember that Lefty grew up poor in California, one of 7 children. He came from a family where his father worked morning until night and actually was not even home during the week. His mother worked till morning till night. Lefty's journey from that upbringing, a very Mark Twain-esque upbringing, what this trip did was gave him a perspective that he brought to bear, and coupled with that remarkable ability and desire to interact with people, helped create the man who became a legend, not simply on the mound, but outside the foul lines.